want to make sure that we cover a couple other things. So we have some I know we have some questions. But let me try to get. Did you have something
Can
you
I
want to say?
ask you a question?
Sure.
Because we don't have anybody who's doing transactional or yield management business models here. You've probably seen enough of those.
Yeah.
This whole area of yield management.
Yeah.
I mean, how are you thinking about it?
So.
Groupon. I mean, those kind of things.
Well.
You didn't expect that, did you?
No. I think, well, I mean, it's Groupon specific, there's some of these other businesses. I think that one of the issues with those businesses is just low barriers to entry. So, those, are you asking more about transactional businesses? Or
Yeah, so it used to be transactional, but now the area, there's excess inventory that's going to be, it's perishable, or it's just going to go.
I'll be honest, I don't understand these businesses, so maybe I'm the idiot in the room because they're going to go public for billions of dollars. But this idea that you can, well, here's why we didn't make some investments, because we looked at a lot. Does anyone care? I mean,
I can.
all right, thank you. I didn't understand how they could make a margin on these businesses for these sorts of things. So if you're giving someone, if you're saying, Groupon's going and saying, you've got to take the 50% cut in order to make it interesting, because everyone wants a deal. That's the one thing we know about Americans. Anyone's wondering, everyone wants a freaking deal. Every one of these sites, Groupon, Daily Deal, there's all these, companies exploding. They're all, we all want a deal. I'm no exception. Go to Costco almost every weekend. All right. So, so they say 50 to 60% off. You've got to do that to get people interested. Then they go and say, hey, Mr. Person that's giving 50 or 60%, I think I'll take, half of that, or 30 to 50% of that. And then, at some point, I would assume those businesses got to pay for the things that they're giving. Now, so it's 50%, another 50%. It's not like these things are digital goods. These things, that's what I don't get about some of these, hard good type companies. I mean, someone's got to make this stuff. Now, granted, a lot of it's excess inventory, maybe they can get rid of it. But I just never understood where that there'd be enough margin in there to build, for these retailers to build. Now, what they're saying is, hey, it's a great marketing, it's great marketing service and so on. But I find that hard. But they're very successful, and for certain kinds of businesses, maybe sushi, really cheap. Works well. This idea that every single business can afford to do this doesn't make sense. But again,
It doesn't work for products, but it could work for service businesses.
Could work for digital businesses, service businesses, and clearly, I think some restaurants that are having some success with it as sort of, in terms of marketing and stuff like that. And so we'll see how it sort of evolves. There's a lot of these sites now, and so maybe the margins will start to shrink in terms of what the Groupon competitors are willing to take, and maybe it becomes more sustainable. But I do want to get to Reggie and to John, because they've been sitting here patiently and talk about, we've got two, of the leading companies in the world, really, and lead gen happen to be on the panel, and we're ignoring them. So let's
There's a question.
oh, yes.
Oh, I just wanted to expand on what you just said. So, are you just suggesting that for those businesses where the COGS is actually low, this deal business could work?
I am suggesting that it should work better for businesses where the COGS are low than where the COGS are high. Now, obviously Zulily, a local company, is just killing it, and I regret every second that we aren't investors in that business. But it seems to me that a stroller should have high COGS. So what do I know? It seems like that they're just doing, and maybe because it's sort of the older model or something, they can get the COGS low because they want to get rid of the stuff. But again, it probably, you got to sort of get into the middle of these businesses to really understand whether they work. But at a high level, it's surprising to me that high COG businesses could work with, with all these discounts. All right. How did you pick, John, and then I'm going to ask Reddy the same thing, the space? Well, first of all, tell people what you do, and then how did you pick, lead gen for elder care? I mean, just sort of, how did you just? I assume it has something to do with monetizing. You thought you could monetize it, but just help us understand how you actually chose that space.
Sure. It's pretty easy. My girlfriend at the time was in senior care. She had been working for a bunch of different, bunch of the largest elder care companies in the was acutely aware of just how far behind from an internet standpoint, from a marketing standpoint, those folks were, and how hard it was for families to find good information because it was such a fragmented marketplace. And essentially, the way it happened is my old roommate had been working for or had been part of a startup that was doing online vacation rentals out of Hawaii, and that model was if they help somebody get a vacation, they take a placement fee when they help somebody find a vacation rental from the provider. And he was trying to get me to go join them. I went and took a look and said, I love this model. I just think it's fantastic. It's such a gorgeous, you can provide it free on both sides, and it's paid for performance and so forth. But I didn't like the competitors. Came back, was talking with my girlfriend at the time, who later became my wife, and she said, hey, we should do that model in senior care.
That isn't why she became a wife, because she became a that wasn't the, you couldn't exactly break,
Fantastic ideas. Yeah.
you couldn't exactly break up with her after you started this business after, yeah, keep it. So then you looked at that space, and what was it about that space that you thought, the characteristics of it made it attractive?
Well, characteristics were really that we knew it, that we had somebody on our team who knew that business inside and out, had connections in the industry, that we could very easily test our theory that, hey, this should work, right? If we provide somebody with a move-in and we don't charge for any of these leads, and if somebody moves in, are they going to be willing to pay a commission? And let's say the commission is X, are they going to be willing to do that? We had somebody inside who said, yeah, pretty certain we would do that, who allowed us entry into a bunch of other executives who said, absolutely. And after that, it was just, okay, we'll go as fast and as hard as we can.
Reggie, any thoughts on how you, I know it was
Yeah,
also your
well, I'll tell you the All-Star Directory story, because that's an interesting one. But one of the interesting contrasts between John's business, John's, they've got a much more of a high-touch approach in how they do lead gen, and they have a lot more content, and that's one of the reasons they've been able to sustain their positions, because I know that's a pretty competitive market, because some former current investors of my company owned it in the senior living space, and they just sold. And also a guy that I worked with at All-Star is one of his competitors. So they've been able to hold theirs on because of that market knowledge. The way that All-Star Directories, which was a lead gen company for the education vertical, so schools like the University of Phoenix and Strayer and all of that, that came about through a very complex research project that Mike Matthew did. He typed in to Google nursing school and didn't see very many results coming back of nursing school directories. And he decided, I think we'll start a nursing school directory. And if anybody knows anything about healthcare, I mean, it's hard to get nurses. Nurses can, they're worth their weight in gold, they can always work. So nursing schools were hot. So by just doing that Google search about 8 years ago, he decided that nursing schools was a good place to go. So it can be that complicated. And there's this group of people in Winthrop, Washington. Has anyone been to Winthrop, Washington? Okay, so Winthrop, Washington is where a lot of these lead gen companies that I've been involved with have started, because there's some guys out there, and that's pretty much what they do all day. They search words, and if they don't see enough, hey, we'll build a directory. And one of them has some IP to put these things together. And that's how All Property Management was found. We bought this company about 6 months ago from some guys in Winthrop who are good at finding them, but they're not good at scaling. And so we're much better at scaling.
I want to talk about that. Before we talk about scaling, I'm curious, why, and for us, both of you, why is it that you can go and get a customer cheaper than, just basic question, cheaper than
The provider.
the
themselves.
provider of the service?
Yeah.
And how do you, and then I want to say how do you then scale that, because it's interesting to do it, but you guys are doing it at scale.
Yeah, on our front, it's relatively easily explained in that any given provider, well, first of all,